Okay, we're on the air. You can start whenever you're ready.
All right, so that's where I call to order the September 19th. I would like to call to order the September 19th meeting of the Oakdale Tree Board. Do I need to do anything else besides that?
Nope.
All right, hey, we're going. First thing we got to do is pledge allegiance, correct?
Yes.
We will do that.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right. Roll call then, yeah? I'm unprepared, I apologize. It's fun.
That's okay.
You can have me do roll call, or you can do
Lauren,
it.
can you do the roll call, please?
Sure. Nick Cantola,
Here.
Marge Sagstatter, excused, absence. Glenn Giacoletto,
Here.
Michael Bender,
Here.
Dallas Pearson,
Here.
Mike Zarella.
Here.
We do have a quorum.
All right. Did everyone have a chance to look over the minutes from last meeting?
Yes.
Does anybody have any changes that need to be made?
I move we accept minutes as presented.
Second.
All right. All in favor? Any opposed? All right. We have approved the minutes from the last meeting. Old business. We have some new commissioner applications.
And if I may,
You may, please.
I just stuck that in there, so I brought it up last time, we had one, and I haven't had time to do my part of this job for her yet, and since that time, we've got another. So in the next couple of weeks here, I'll be trying to have interviews with my supervisor and them, and if they successfully complete those interviews, I'll be pushing it off to city council. They'll have whatever they do, part of their, I don't know if it's an interview or a phone conversation or interview. And then it'll be up to them to move forward or not. So
Awesome.
if, I'll just introduce them quickly. Jacqueline Johnson was the one who I'm really delinquent on. And Susan Lindo is a more recent applicant, so, since our last board meeting, so.
Excellent. Awesome. I'm very excited. Next up on old business, item B, Twin Cities Growth Award updates. We've got an exhibit in here. Lauren, would you?
Exhibit A is page 11 or 12. And Marge was gonna talk about this, but basically, it's been brought up in the past tree board, the Tree City USA Growth Awards. A couple of board members have discussed it and want the city to apply for it. So Marge has looked up the requirements. It's you just need 10 points, I think, on the application to receive the Tree City USA Growth Award on top of our Tree City USA designation. So I'll just say that, you know, I'll be bringing it up with my administrator and seeing if she wants to apply for it, or if she wants to bring it to the council or what, but, so that's kind of where we're at on that.
Yeah, and just based on what I saw in the requirements, it seems like we should pretty easily qualify for points.
Yeah, I think we're qualified, yeah.
Not too stressed about that then. Okay, and then, anybody have anything else they want to add on that? Questions, comments, concerns? right. Lauren, do you want to take us through the 2024 work plan updates?
Yes, and I'm gonna put this on an overhead because this did not make it into the agenda. Does it go this way? Anybody in the booth?
Anita, can you bring up the doc cam, please?
There it goes. There we go.
Okay, and I'm gonna have you guys vote on this. If you wanna make any changes, let's do it here. If you wanna add anything to this, let's do it here and then vote on it so that I can present it. And then it'll come up again, I think, at the council tree board workshop, which will be sometime this fall, so.
Okay.
So far I just have our normal duties on here.
If I might, you have to bring it over to your, whoops,
There you go.
there you go. There you go.
So far I just have the normal duties on here. 2024 tree board work plan, description tasks, examples from current or previous work. Any changing from the existing events or new actions on the ground will require council approval. So if you guys would vote to bring something to council, then they make a decision on it. So the Arbor Day Festival is the first task. Pete Gratzky Arbor Day Tree Giveaway is how we celebrate Arbor Day here. That celebrate, an Arbor Day Festival is one of the requirements of the Tree City USA application. So we just have, the date. It's always the first Saturday after Arbor Day. Timing, lately it's been 9 to 11:30. The number of trees given away last year was, I guess we had 2 short years in a row. The previous year was weather related, I think, and last year again was somewhat weather related, I think. So we're closer to 175 trees, but all the trees get planted. It's not, I have a budget to plant trees, so if we order 25 extra trees, they're getting planted in Oakdale somewhere, so I'm not worried about it, but definitely the number of trees is always up for discussion. If you guys think, we're not getting the turnout we need to, or we're getting more turnout than we have trees for, so. Species selection, we're gonna go over that later as well. Size and cost, typically we're around $30 a tree. Location and style of the tree giveaway has kind of changed. The location has stayed the same, but the style has changed into a car parade, and people seem to be happy with that. Volunteers and council arrival times, usually 15 minutes ahead of time. And do we allow other groups to participate? The Scouts have participated in the past. They didn't call me last year, so things that you should be discussing with council on stuff like that. Next, Jane Klein Memorial Spring Planting, which was renamed this year by City Council to be the Jane Klein Memorial Spring
Zach, Lauren,
Planting.
you have to slide it up a little bit so it stays in the doc cam.
Thank you.
Yep.
Again, same date. Try to avoid Mother's Day and high school proms. That's usually what we're thinking about when we pick the date there. Timing has typically been 9 to noon with lunch at 11. Type of planting, so this is where it varies. Trees or landscape beds. In the past, we've tried to revitalize some landscape beds. But we are a tree board. I really enjoyed last year planting all those trees.
That was super fun. It was a great spot.
The board used to be composed of a lot more gardeners. I think that's why it kind of did a lot of planting, revitalizing. But yeah, that's something you should discuss with council as well. tree species selection, and volunteers from where. So right now, we're getting volunteers from the National Honor Societies of both schools and both high schools in 622 school district. And then we get a few walk-ins and master gardeners and tree board, so. Next, the Scott Carver Buckthorn removal event, which is always in the fall. The date, usually we try to avoid MEA weekend, just so that people aren't out of town. Timing again, 9 to noon it's typically, lunch at 11. Location, it's usually in the nature preserve, but we have had it at other places. So that's always up for discussion. There's still plenty of regrowth to do in the nature preserve. There's actually still some old growth, but it's really hard to get to. So I've kind of been developing another plan, so it's not something we would have to have a buckthorn removal event on. But there's plenty of areas where regrowth, we can keep it in the nature preserve, but, you know, that's up for discussion, so, with you and the council. And again, volunteers from where? Typically, right now, we're getting them from the National Honor Society, so. And that's the tree board work plan for next year, 2024. If you want me to add anything to that before we kind of finalize a draft for council to see, I would, and which is what's going to be discussed at your workshop this fall. Let's hear any ideas.
What's the timeline on those through the Arbor Day? When do you need the selection of trees by the first meeting?
So I think I have it on the agenda. I'm going to bring that up again.
You need to order them soon in order to get them.
Yeah.
And I need to order them this or next week.
Yeah,
so.
ideally, we'd have those today, right? Like, we hammer that out today and get that sorted,
Yep.
which I think we can have that conversation. It'll be really intense, I'm sure. Yeah, I mean, I think this all looks really good. It all seems pretty standard with what we've done in the past. I don't think we need to do, like, I don't see a need to reinvent the wheel in any of these. Anybody feel differently?
From what I've seen, everything works good so far.
Really like the vehicle parade, giving away trees. It works out really, really well.
Yeah, and last year, I thought with the 2 lanes, that worked out. Yeah, that worked out really well. The volunteers from where, I'm kind of curious now, just with climate change and everything, do any of these high schools have like environmental clubs or anything like that? Because this would be something that would be right up their alley, I would think.
And
But I don't know if there is such a thing.
I don't know, and I have asked the National Honor Society advisors at both schools if there are other groups that I should be looking at, and I haven't ever gotten an answer from them, so. I can ask that again this year. And if there's no changes, I would like you guys to vote on this, that I can call this our draft work plan.
Yeah. Well, can I get does anyone feel strongly enough they want to make a motion to approve it?
I move that we adopt and accept the 2024 tree board work plan as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. We have approved the draft for you, Lauren.
Thank you.
Then, the next item on the list is the naturalist tours of the Discovery Center. Yeah, okay, we have some background on that, Lauren.
Yeah, so this was something else that Marge brought up that she wanted to discuss. I have on the back side of that tree board work plan, I added some things for 2023 council tree board workshop discussion topics.
Perfect.
So, and I didn't get that Naturalist Tours Discovery Center thing on there, but I will try to add that.
I mean, if that's Marge's thing, then we should maybe wait till Marge is here to discuss that.
Yeah.
That's fine.
And basically it was that she said that the naturalists that used to give tours in the park had moved away or something, or quit, maybe got too old, I don't know, but had stopped doing the tours. And she was hoping to bring it to council to look at getting tours. And I think that would probably be the rec department that would set that up. So, I mean, if you guys recommended it to council and they thought it was a good idea, then they would probably push it at the rec department.
Sure.
Well, I have a rec department meeting at 7. Do you want me to bring it up?
Please.
Parks and Rec?
I don't, but I'm sure Marge would.
Okay. I can do that.
I don't, but I'm sure Marge would.
And I don't know much about that environmentalist that used to, or naturalist that gave tours. I never participated in any of that tour, so I'm not sure what it was like or what they did.
Okay. Well, then we can move on to number 2 there underneath item C, which is the tree track program. So we've got an exhibit B in there, but letter A under that is updates to the map and pamphlet. So Mike, you were out there looking at the trees?
Yes. My first question is, well, my first comment is that this seems to be a really nice program, but I don't think anybody's using it.
So this program was originally put forward by the tree board, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago.
Sure.
It took us 3 years to get it installed. But again, I've never been real happy with the successful outcome. There's some tweaks that need to be done. I had my crew ground truth it. You guys ground truth it. Mike Bender, I think, and Marge did some ground truthing. And so we have a list of things that need to get done. I've already talked to the GIS department. We've got the map working again. The map was always visible, but we couldn't do any changes to it. But now I think I finally can make changes again. So I'll have my crew go out and make the mapping edits that need to clean the map up. They've already tried to straighten some posts and the ground was too hard. They couldn't get them out of the ground, so I have to figure out how we're gonna get those posts out of the ground to straighten them still. Some kind of a pallet pinching tool, I'm thinking. The one we have at Public Works has got steel prongs on it, so it's gonna wreck our fiberglass stakes if I use that. But, so I still have a little bit of work to do to figure out, or just wait for rain and try it again. We'll see. I don't know, but
Might never
anyways.
rain again, so.
Yeah, but I had a hard time finding that map and went to the Nature Center and had to ask for it, and then they printed it out for me. So that's why I said, I don't know if it's being used, because, you know, when I went to try and do it, I couldn't find the map.
Well, I'm sure most of the public's experience with it is they walk through and they see the stakes and
Yeah,
scan the QR codes, like that's, I'm sure. But thank you for going out and checking it out and seeing what's there and making sure it's accurate, Mike. That's fantastic.
So that's a potential discussion point for you and the council would be, how can we better get that utilized? Can we advertise it somehow?
Yeah. I mean, from what I saw, I think it's a great tool. But I just, from, like myself, as not knowing anything about it, till I volunteered to help, it was hard to find that map,
Is it readily available on the website?
It is, yep.
if you know where you're going.
Yeah, that's the thing, marketing it. How do you
Yeah.
get everybody to know that it exists?
I was over in a park in Minnetonka a couple weeks ago, meeting with the city forester over there, and they had their tree trek set up, and I could reach out to Hannibal and see if, like, they've done anything special, if, like, they've found good value of it, see just, like, what other cities are doing. If that'd be valuable.
Well, I think if people want to know about trees, it's a very valuable, I mean, the idea is fantastic. But it's just, I don't know if it's being used, so that's, I would like to see it, be more, or be used more, so.
How long do you think it would take to find all these trees? Is it kind of arduous to
No,
find them?
the only one I couldn't find is the serviceberry.
Where's that one supposed to be?
East of the nature center, east or northeast of it, and I walked that whole area and I couldn't find it.
Like in the spot behind it, like in the little,
No, I walked behind it, and I wish somebody would do some trimming in there because it's hard to walk in there.
get you a saw, Mike.
I don't need a saw, I got one. But as you pointed out, there is a Juneberry elsewhere in the forest garden.
Yeah.
And I also, when I was talking to Marge out there, I noticed that the Amur maple, that's dead, and I couldn't find the pagoda dogwood, but there is an Amur maple where the pagoda dogwood is supposed to be, so you could just switch signs on that.
And it's quite possible that we would have killed the amber maple, so
It's pretty good size.
that's an invasive species that we chemically
Yeah.
treat, so.
I was gonna say, yeah, big ups to whoever decided to put the amber maple on the tree track. Here's some invasive species. Cool.
Yeah.
All right, well, so some work to do on that for sure. Looks like we're on to forest garden updates. We did walk through there. It is quite overgrown.
So the original plan was to plant that and it was all about rebuilding the old farmhouse soils on that site. And it was planting vegetation that was gonna rebuild the soils, and the whole plan was to kind of let it go back natural. Marge is trying to start an initiative to maintain that better. And that's another discussion you guys have to have with city council.
Sure. Yeah, so it looks like eventually Marge would like plants labeled, a maintenance plan written up. And then, yeah, the layout plan Marge already has going with Paul. We do have an exhibit for that one.
Yeah, and I think part of her vision is there's a lot of edibles in that garden already, and I think part of her vision is to kind of turn that into an edible garden that can be advertised to residents. Go and pick the fruit.
Be very cool.
Did she talk to you at all about the peach tree needing to be?
Yes, I have heard a lot about that peach tree, and I did make a work order, but we haven't got it staked yet.
Anybody else have any questions or comments about anything related to the forest garden?
And a lot of these items are on the backside of that 2024 work plan. And it's labeled 2023 Council Tree Board Workshop Discussion Topics.
Yeah. Appreciate, under Forest Garden, item 4, labyrinth reduction.
So
Excellent way to describe that.
there is a, what's the gray rock? Dresser trap rock. There is a spiral labyrinth with a, what do they call the trail that cuts across them? Desire line trail across it. And there's, the trails are close together and the shrubs that were planted in between them have outgrown everything.
Sure.
We used to blow that rock path off once in a while just to kind of encourage people that walk up here. But it's getting so overgrown that the last time I told my guys to go up there, I said, pick one of those gravel paths and just don't clean it off anymore. And Marge had came to the same conclusion, we should just eliminate one of those, which, you know, might mean just throwing some soil on top of the rock, I don't know.
The paths also have like burning nettle right next to them, which is
Oh,
pretty excellent.
And
Yeah.
and I don't know which weed it is that with the stickers on it.
Oh, yeah.
It isn't cockleburr, it's, or
No.
burdock, there's smaller ones.
Yep.
You can ask Deb, she found it well.
Well, and then there's like poison ivy right there too. Great.
so I do
Really
try,
user-friendly.
I do try to treat the poison ivy where we find it, so I'll look for that.
Sure. All right. Anything else on the forest garden before we move on? Thank you for going out there and doing all that work, Mike. All right, shadow planting grant. Get some background on that, Lauren.
And so this is another initiative that Marge wants to get going again. Shadow planting is basically where you're planting another tree next to a chemically treated ash tree right now that you don't want to chemically treat forever, and to let a tree start growing, to get established well, so that when you do cut down the mature ash tree, you have some shade again as soon as possible. So that is an initiative that Marge would like to get the tree board to discuss with council again. And she talked about maybe applying for a grant for money for shadow planting. But, so that's what that's all about.
All right, well, we can save that for when Marge is here and.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Nick, what was your thoughts beyond that? Because to me, that just seems like you're asking for trouble down the road unless that tree is planted perfectly in the right spot, because you're adding costs to taking that tree down if you don't put that shadow plant in the right spot.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if the public works crew is doing the planting and putting them in the right spots, I mean, I think that could be okay, but certainly now you're adding an obstacle to removal.
And there was some discussion about having that as a volunteer event, so, you know, that's, again, a discussion for council, where would it be replacing the current spring planting, or adding another event, or?
Actually, a really cool thing to do for the spring planting would be to use that as an opportunity to go in and do that. I think we'd probably want to do it the same way, where you guys come in and auger the holes, and then we just stick stuff in the ground that's already ready to go.
And there'll be a lot of logistics involved, because I would want to talk to every homeowner's yard that we have an ash tree in. So, and the volunteer event would be moving,
Yeah.
you know, how, is it citywide? Is it this one block and we're only planting 7 trees?
Yeah, with all those logistics, it's probably better to just like have you guys do that if that's something we can get funding for, rather than trying to make it a volunteer event, in my opinion. I don't know. Does
And
anybody else
any
feel-
grant funding applications have to go through City Hall.
Sure.
And I don't know if that's through the administrator or through City Council, but, so we at least have to, any decisions that you guys make on grant applications.
Yeah.
I at least have to talk to City Hall about and see how we proceed, or if we proceed.
All right. Anybody have any further comments or questions about that one? Sorry, I feel like I'm ignoring you, Mike. I'm not on purpose. Everybody else is over here. All right, next time we'll just trade seats. All right, well then next up is normal duties.
So these are all underneath the work plan still, which we've already discussed. So normal duties rate, just the Arbor Day Festival, the Jane Clymer Memorial Spring Planting, and the Scott Carver Buckthorn Removal Project.
Okay, I think we've covered those pretty darn well. Should we just move on to the Buckthorn removal event? Or does anybody have any questions or comments about what we would consider our normal duties?
The only question I've got is response to one of my earlier questions. It sounded like we needed to make decisions about the trees today.
Yes.
See it on the agenda, so do we need to amend the agenda to include that?
I think it's down here under other city
Bailey
forester
trees
updates,
availability?
Bailey's tree availability.
Yeah, I would suggest we move that up into new business.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. New business or old business, what did you say?
business.
Probably new business.
Tree selection. Okay, vote on
The amendment to the agenda.
agenda, there you go. Vote on an agenda amendment.
Can I get a motion to amend the agenda?
I move that we move the Bailey's tree availability topic up to new business as Arbor Day tree selection, as item B under new business. Somebody get a second.
Second.
All right, thank you, Dallas and Mike. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And we will add that to new business as item B. Thank you, Dallas.
Yep.
Okay, well, then let's move on to the Buckthorn removal event then. I know we've got a map as Exhibit C1, and then a flyer to check out 2. So this is just the back edge of the forest garden?
Yeah,
What we see on the map?
C1 is page 26 and 27. Oh, maybe I'm wrong.
27 is the map, yeah, 26, 27. And
Okay,
then
yep.
the flyer
Yep,
is
yep,
28
yep.
and 29.
So basically, and it looks like the map didn't all get published like I had it, but, so that is the peninsula north. Let me think about it a minute. It's kind of northeast off of the forest garden. And it goes out in the mud lake. The footbridge is kind of through a little bit of a swamp to the west. And there's more buckthorn removal than just that right there. It's actually all over that peninsula there. And that was my thought for the buckthorn removal event this spring. This fall. Marge thought it was a good idea. So, yeah, I just want to have a vote on if that's where you want to have the buckthorn removal event this year.
Yeah, I think it's a great spot for the buckthorn removal. I think we could do a lot of good in that little part of the park, make it more usable, make it more inviting to walk back there. Because right now it's called, like, it does not look like a place you should be going even though we want to encourage them to go, people to go there.
I'd like to make a motion that we have our buckthorn removal event in the forest garden at the indicated spots.
Second?
All right, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Okay. Then we will have the buckthorn removal event there. We recommend having the buckthorn removal event there. So does anyone have any questions, comments about the buckthorn removal event based on what you're seeing on the map or what's on the flyer? Is that the flyer as it's going to go out?
It is, yep. And we'll meet at the pavilion by the large pavilion, which is by the Discovery Center there, across the parking lot.
Any chance we could get a higher resolution photo on the upper part? Kind of looks like it was taken with a potato.
Yep, I can certainly work with the communications department about that.
Cool. Okay, well, then moving on to the EAB removal ordinance. Info from the council liaison. Welcome, Mayor Zabel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm filling in for Councilmember Willenberg tonight. What do you want to know? I guess, what am I presenting here? Chapter 22 of the city code covers the process for removing trees in the city of Oakdale. It also prescribes how the city goes about abating them from private property as well. So personally, I'm not quite sure what the tree board or staff's trying to achieve with a policy here, since it does seem like it's pretty well prescribed in the city code. There is one portion of Chapter 22 that talks about a policy, but that really only pertains to the actual removal, treatment, abatement itself. So everything else is pretty well spelled out. Maybe Lauren can shed some light on what the council liaison is supposed to be talking about here?
Yes, originally, my thought was in the wording of nuisance, and the way I originally presented it to the board last meeting was I wanted to find out if the board thought they should have a discussion at all or present it to city council to look at if nuisance and hazards should be looked at. Because it's gonna come fast and hard here, neighbor complaints over a nuisance. And that's where I was trying to get the tree board to think about if they thought that was worth going to council over. If we want to think about changing the wording from nuisance.
Yeah, so, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
My understanding is that under the city code, nuisance is really only defined as presence of. So presence of Dutch elm disease, oak wilt, emerald ash borer, I believe those are the three spelled out in the city code. Any consequences or results from the presence, whether it's the tree dying or partially dying, in some respect feels irrelevant. It is, my understanding is the purpose of Chapter 22, Article 6 is to slow the spread by eliminating the specimen. So beyond that, I don't think there's much of a conversation. It seems like the practice outlined in Chapter 22 is, receive a resident complaint, or it doesn't have to necessarily be a complaint from a resident. It could be an observation from city staff, investigate through the process defined in there, determine if emerald ash borer is present, abate it or mitigate it. Beyond that, I'm not sure anything else needs to be defined or redefined, but, you are our advisory body, you know, so if there is something you feel, if there's a gray area you feel needs to be addressed, we certainly could look at that. Personally, I feel like it is covered under the language, but that is just one elected official's opinion.
Sure. So like, Lauren, your concern would be that if we were to switch, if using the word nuisance, we're not as covered as we would be if it was the word hazard. So like, because like a hazard is a defined thing, like with an actual
I think we're
definition.
gonna get bombarded
No doubt. Like I'm already seeing them in my neighborhood, like
with,
3/4 dead ash trees. Like,
with people saying, you need to have my neighbor remove his tree.
sure.
And, and eventually it's going to be a hazard.
Sure.
So I'm wondering if that's gonna slow that down, if it says hazards over nuisance.
We could have them demonstrate that it's like poses a real threat to people or property, then that's a barrier to them just complaining about an ugly tree next door.
Right,
Okay.
but
Yeah, I mean, I see that for
now
sure.
that's gonna be more expensive too, because we don't have any track certified arborists on staff. So we're gonna have to hire out track certified arborists then to make a hazard determination.
Sure. Track's relatively easy to go get, for what it's worth.
So,
Mr. Chair, so one thing I want to caution the board on, and it's something that the city council has to be careful of as well, is that very fine line between policy and operations.
Yeah.
So considerations of, you know, it's going to be a lot, et cetera, really aren't topics of consideration for the advisory bodies or even the city council. That's something that's handled on the operations side. So with our staff, with our city administrator, et cetera. So that is a very firm wall that the city council has established, and we want to keep that. Under the current language, you know, I think we would all agree that, yeah, there are going to be a lot, because we do have a lot. Regardless of whether it's a nuisance or hazard, et cetera, you know, the current language merely only addresses presence of. So if the tree board wants to make a policy change recommendation to go from presence of to presence of and significant hazard, et cetera, that would probably be the tree board's lane. I don't know where the city council would stand on that, because I think evaluating hazards can be incredibly subjective. If the goal is to lessen the tsunami of complaints, we can certainly look at different ways to handle that, or staff can look at that, whether it's outsourcing, you know, to contractors, et cetera. That is a financial consideration the city council can absolutely make, but that doesn't currently exist within the budget or within the city code. So, so that's one challenge we would have to address, and we would address. So, I think for the purposes of this conversation, it's really that the tree board should consider, what are we trying to achieve? Is it to get, you know, ash trees down that have been confirmed to have EAB, or is it to leave them up for a longer period of time because of potential impacts on staff, which would be an operations consideration? Okay. In terms of the city code, we try and just think of the end objective, which in this case, as defined by the city code, is get them down, get them out, you know, and get them replaced. That's probably where we're at right now.
Awesome. Thank you for that input.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
if I may,
Yeah.
that's wonderful conversation, which is why I brought this whole thing up at the last tree board meeting, and Nick, you were gone, which it was unfortunate for me, because I was hoping you were gonna be there because you're in the industry. And the mayor's here tonight to talk about it, which is fabulous. So
This is a pet issue of mine. So.
I am so happy that we just had this conversation. That's the thing I wanted to happen, so this is perfect.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
I apologize, but I have to leave.
Oh, yeah.
I have to get to another meeting.
Thank you, Mike. We appreciate you being here. Hey, did you send your list of tree species to Lauren, Mike?
Fabulous, thank you.
Right there, my man. I just want to make sure your voice was heard on that one, because I respect your input on that very much. Well, does anyone feel strongly that we need to recommend discussing that further, whether we use the word nuisance or hazard? Does anyone have an opinion on that very greatly? I do see where the word hazard would be maybe beneficial from some perspectives, but like the burden of then having to then quantify it as a hazard is real high, to actually go out and perform that tree risk assessment. As a person who does those. I guess I don't feel strongly one way or another, and if you, Mr. Mayor, are saying that you feel that it's covered well in the current policy, I would absolutely defer to you on that one.
My opinion would be that the ordinance does a nice job at prescribing how we address this issue. There are absolutely issues on the operations side that we need to work through, and that's a different conversation. You know, that's a budgetary conversation. As for changes to the existing ordinance, personally, I don't see what, beyond saying get rid of infested trees or infected trees, what the benefit would be, but that is up to the tree board.
Sure.
I can't say I have a strong feeling either way, but I tend to be in agreement that if the city council and the mayor's happy with what they have now, and they feel it addresses the issue properly, then that's fine by me.
Yeah, like the concerns I have about it are probably on the operational side as well, so I think that's outside of our purview.
It is. I look at that, but it is outside of our purview.
Yeah,
Mike Dallas?
it's really purely, as Mayor said, subjective at that point, so.
My recollection of why it was brought up would be that it was more on the operational side, you know, what to do with recalcitrant people who don't want to remove a tree even though it is a hazard, and that is out of our purview, really. It was just anecdotally brought up in part of the discussion.
Okay.
And Mr. Chair and board members, that is prescribed in the ordinance. So under the current ordinance, even on private property, if the city has reasonable suspicion to test a tree and it is confirmed, the city can remove it and assess the cost of that removal on property taxes. So that there's a due process provision in there, public notification, all of that. So, that is defined in Chapter 22 as well.
Well, that sounds pretty well covered then, I think. You feel good about that, Lauren?
Yep, and I'm happy that it's recorded now. This, hopefully more people will understand that their tree is gonna get told to be removed.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You bet.
Then the next item would be the updated EAB plan approval or suggested edits. I should probably recuse myself from any discussion of that. So feel free to take it away.
I lost track of where we are.
Oh, the Exhibit D, the EAB plan approval. So that updated Emerald Ash Borer management plan for the city of Oakdale.
Got it. Here we go. So Exhibit D, page is, doesn't really say a page number here again. Hang on, it's on the front.
It'd be 30.
Page 30, 31. So that is the, this is the last grant we had awarded from the DNR for Emerald Ash Borer. We had included in that grant paying a contractor to update our Emerald Ash Borer plan. This is the outcome of that plan. That grant, I'm in the final stages of completing that grant. I think I have a meeting next week to finally complete that grant. So, and I just wanted the tree board to have an opportunity to look at the final version from the vendor, see if they have any comments, any changes they think they might see that need to get done. Eventually, I am probably, and this is something I'm not sure how this goes, if I bring this to the administrator, once I have this final and I want council to approve it as our EAB plan, I don't know if I go to the administrator or if I have you present it to city council. I don't know, I'll find that out. But I wanted to get any feedback from you guys on this, so.
Perhaps this is something that Mayor Zabel ought to weigh in on, but your recusal, as far as I'm concerned, should only be taken on the vote.
Okay.
As for your comments, as one very knowledgeable in the area, I think they would be appreciated, so.
All right, well, I, as a person who works for a competitor to the vendor, I just don't know if that's legit, if I can weigh in or not.
Mr. Chair, you should recuse.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, as far as I was concerned, as not having the expertise that some of the other members here have, I thought it was quite thorough. I was impressed with, kind of the detail of it. I was impressed with it myself. But again, I don't have the expertise in that field like you do.
Can I, is the point that this goes on our website or something so people have a opportunity to read the history as well as what they can do as far as steps to prevent it?
If we adopted it as our EAB plan, it would probably go on the website, yes.
Okay.
And by we, I mean city council would be the ones that adopt it.
I mean, it is a little long. I don't know if anybody would want to read the whole thing.
Well, several of the things that you've already got in place, like a shadow planting, are already in process as well, so. That's about the only comment I can make, since I'm certainly not an expert in this.
Well, if nobody has further comments or questions about this plan, we could probably move on to the next agenda item, which I think would be new business. Did you want us to make a recommendation as a board, whether we approve this or not? Is that something you were looking for?
I don't need to, I was just looking for any comments, so.
Then we'll just move on. Thank you guys for your input on that. Ooh, the chestnut crabapple whips that are available. Like those, we have to have those picked up on September 30th around noon.
Yeah, and I don't remember, it's a Marge thing again, I don't remember exactly what that is.
Yeah, there are four or six. six trees from the Washington County Master Gardener gravel bed at the fairgrounds that we were ostensibly going to use as part of the revamped forest garden. There was some spots we wanted to put them. We'd have to clear out some trees to make it work. But along the entrance to the forest garden, I think Marge had an idea of like putting them around the entrance. I just don't think that's gonna work logistically with what's already there that we wanna keep. So we have a proposed new place to put them. I think we included that in a map that we sent over to you, Lauren. But yeah, there's just some trees that we can get that would look really cool and provide some more edible fruit down there at the forest garden.
Okay, yep, so I'll have to check on that. I think that would be considered a donation, so I'll have to check into that.
Yep, and then we would need a place to keep them until the Buckthorn event then, because they're coming out of the gravel bed, right? Yeah, so they're bare rut. We'd have to have a place to put them. I know you guys are dumping out your gravel beds for the season here soon, right?
Yep. I'm sure I could find spots in the gravel
Put them in
bed
the
for
ground
them.
somewhere for
Yep.
2 weeks.
We could heal them, and I have a place I call the hospice. I have a place I call Pete's Nursery. We could heal them in many places, so,
Spots, okay, so we can store them until it's time to put them permanently in the ground.
yep.
Okay. And then as per our amendment to the agenda, next up, we get to talk about tree species for the giveaway. This is the fun part.
If I may.
Please.
So Mike Bender on his departure threw some species at us here. Prunus mackey,
Okay.
Pyrus blaze, wasabi cherry, contender peach, and river birch.
Okay.
And this is an item I would like a vote on, so I could try to get the trees you guys want for the tree giveaway.
And so the list that you sent us didn't make it into the agenda, but I know I have it here somewhere. So I guess the question then is, what are we looking for in giveaway trees? Do we want, are we looking for big shade trees? Would we rather have smaller ornamental? Do we want to mix? Do we want to just give up on trying to ever give away a conifer ever again? Or should we try to find something that, will work, that isn't a Colorado blue spruce? I didn't even see that on the list. I don't think there were any Picea on the list.
No, so that's the thing about evergreens is I cannot get them from Bailey's at all anymore. They have Techni arborvitaes is all they have, and they're this tall. So Mike Bender came up with a suggestion tonight for me that I hadn't thought of before, was contacting Bailey's and having them get if I buy trees from them and they get them from a vendor, then I'm actually getting them from Bailey's.
Sure.
Which might work. I hadn't thought about that, so next year I'll try to maybe think about that and see if I'll contact Bailey's to see if that's a feasibility. I'm going through a salesman change with Bailey's right now, so that'll probably have to wait till next year.
So Mike's list seemed pretty heavily geared towards smaller ornamental or fruit-bearing trees,
Right.
which is great. Those were excellent options. I propose we consider some larger shade trees as well. Anybody? What do you guys like? You guys know things about trees?
I personally kind of like oak trees for a larger shade tree.
Yeah, totally.
I've got 2 of them in my yard, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have an oak that's doing very well, but it is a Prince Royal oak, and they do tend to kind of go more straight up rather than it being a shade tree.
Sure.
But my maple's really nice. And I know Marge likes the Kentucky coffee trees.
Sure.
And for myself, I do like the idea of more fruit trees because I look at them as also provide not only maybe some shade and everything, but also some food source.
Sure.
I have a couple of river birches. They're doing great, but where I live is close to swampy area. So they grow well where I live, but I don't know, and just because of the nature of the soil and it's heavily with a lot of water. But I don't know how well they do outside of that type of environment.
Yeah, I mean, if it's a drier area, you're gonna need to provide supplemental water, I mean, for everything right now, because it's crazy droughty, but just generally, birch trees like water.
Yeah.
I don't know. Mike, what do you like?
I defer to you guys with just a variety. It's kind of like what we've done in the past.
Well, and that's where my head's at too, because like last year we gave away both a bur oak and a Kentucky coffee tree, which they're both great species. Might be cool to do something different. And I was thinking, like with an eye towards climate change, doing something like a yellow wood would be cool, because as we shift warmer, that will do better. So thinking about long-term landscape resiliency, that might be a good thing to consider. But I'm open to suggestions. We want to do an oak tree again. It's Oakdale. We should probably give away an oak tree.
Aren't oak slow growers though?
Yeah, generally. Okay, long-term tree. We don't plant a tree for us, Mike.
The only fast-growing ones would be like ash trees, which
Yeah, we
probably
should
aren't the ones we
Probably
would
not
plant
give away
now.
those. I mean, I would not be opposed to giving away like a really cool white ash, but they need to treat it every 2 years forever.
Well, quite honestly, what you brought up makes a lot of sense as far as something that, we have climate change here and it's, could be permanent. And so something that maybe would do well with what we're expecting or anticipating to happen, more like what we have now, maybe not as much, a little more drought conditions than we typically have had in the past. So trees that would be able to handle drier conditions. So I agree that we should be looking toward the future for what we actually might be encountering now on a relatively permanent basis.
Plus, giving away weird trees would be fun. Should not discount the fun factor when we pick our tree species. Yeah, when I looked at that list, the ones that jumped out to me were that yellowwood. I really like ironwood. Well, hop hornbeam. I don't like the name ironwood. We can talk about that offline. Then like Ohio buckeye, I think would be cool. And then I really like eastern redbud, because again, that's where like about the northern end of their range as it is right now, but potentially if we shift warmer, they'll do better here. And if you plant them in a protected area now, they do all right. So those were the 4 that jumped out to me, but I'm not married to any of them.
What's Lauren's opinion?
I like all of those.
Very diplomatic, thank you.
I would say, so we haven't, I have planted a few yellowwood around the city, but not very many. And I don't know that we've ever given them away. So I'm a fan of the yellowwood. I am a fan of the ironwood. I'm a fan of the Ohio buckeye. And then I would say choose between eastern redbud and some kind of a fruit tree.
I would go for the fruit tree as well.
Fruit tree would be cool.
So we have planted eastern redbuds too. They're a little bit sensitive. They kind of need a little bit of a protected area, but typically around a house would be protected.
You're getting hammered by aphids right now too, just kind of like metro-wide, because it's been so dang dry.
And
The only problem I would maybe have a little bit with fruit tree, which I dearly love, but, like my neighbor's pear that she got through tree giveaway, probably 5-6 years ago, the deer love it.
Yeah?
I mean, and I think that's one of the things, in our neighborhood at least, we do have a lot of deer, and they gravitate toward those fruit trees.
Yeah, and if people don't pick up the fruits, they attract wasps,
Yeah,
which is always fun.
yeah.
But that's like the point of the fruit, isn't it? Like bring in animals, that's why tree makes the fruit.
Yeah, but you want to use them for yourself rather
yeah.
than feed
I mean,
Mother Nature.
If you want fruit, just go buy it at the grocery store. Your tree's not gonna give you enough.
So Mike Bender, one of his was a Pyrus Autumn Blaze, which is a pear tree.
Yep,
But I'm not sure if that's an edible pear
it's just like a.
or a decorative,
showy-
right? I can't remember.
Well, and is that a cultivar of,
Yes, that's,
yeah, well, we probably don't want any of those. That's okay.
we've
would-
planted the contender peach quite a bit.
Yeah,
in-
aren't there
in-
some at
in
what, Eastside
parks.
Park? There's some like right
Yeah,
along the
and
path.
they are fabulous peaches.
Might be the one to go with. I'd be okay with that. Would it be appropriate, allowable to ask our commissioner applicants if they have opinions on this?
Yes, I think you can do whatever you want.
Don't tell me that. How do you guys have opinions on what we should be planting?
Come up to the.
Yeah, come up to the come on
podium,
up.
please.
We got the podium. We want your opinions too. Thanks for coming tonight.
Thank you. Personally, I love the ironwood, and Blue Beech is also a nice one, but it's very slow growing, and I know that's an issue. For the large ones, I like the idea of the hickories. I've done a couple of those myself, and that's a possibility because they're more drought resistant. They're more slow, and the beauty of a slow-growing tree is it's usually sturdier. And so for people who are worried about storm damage, that's why I think the oaks, we all love the oaks so much, is because they are slow-growing and they're strong. So I love the idea of the oaks and maybe a swamp white oak. I mean, I love bur oak. I mean, that's my favorite, so I can't say anything against that. But if you're at issues with smaller trees, a swamp white oak might be a possibility. And I know the fruit, I live in a place where the deer are just, so, but some of the fruit trees, I think sometimes people want fruit trees because they've got the lovely blossoms. So if you could find one that where they don't really have to worry about the fruit so much, but they're getting those beautiful blossoms, that might be one way to get around that. Because what I've heard and I work with a community garden, and I know we'd thought initially about fruit and then backed away from fruit trees because they take so many sprays and there's so much care to a fruit tree if you want to eat the fruit. So in that case, if what people really want is the beauty, then you can find some of the ones that don't really produce much fruit but have the beauty of the blossoms. So that might be one way to get around that issue.
Sure.
And I think that might be what that Pyrus Autumn Blaze is. I think it's probably a showy flower in the spring and beautiful red color in the fall, so.
Yeah, and that might get around it. And I think you were worried about the calorie pear.
That's the one.
Yeah, that you really don't want to.
We don't want those. They're smelly.
Yeah, they're a real issue, a real bad issue. So just-
Yeah, it's a Pyrus caloriana. We should maybe not.
Yeah, because they turn out to be really invasive and just a real problem. So they're my thoughts. Thank you.
So I am really for having like the fruit trees. I'm wondering if I'm Glenn's neighbor because I have the Asian pear that I got about 5 or 6 years ago, and they are the most delicious pears I've ever had in my life. I love it. And then I've had ornamental trees, but I have also always wondered why we live in Oakdale and I've never seen oak trees on the list. So
Did last year?
were there really? Because I actually didn't come last year because wasn't interested in
Swamp
the
white oak
selection that was chosen.
Was it a swampy or was it a bur oak?
Swamp white oak was 2 years ago.
2 years ago. I'm pretty
Because
sure.
I got one of those.
Okay, I'm pretty sure it was bur oak last year.
Was it?
I'm like 99% positive. But
I
to your
must have
point,
missed that one then.
that's okay. To your point, we don't give them away often.
Yeah, and then the whole idea of if we are doing fruit trees, I think it would be mandatory to have them as edible trees. I don't think there's enough education to be giving away inedible fruit trees. So
Sure.
those are my thoughts.
Well, I appreciate your opinion. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much for sharing that with us, guys.
Well, we've narrowed it down, haven't we?
We've got a huge list now. This is great. I like the contender beach. I think that's a cool idea. This is not the Nick show, though. Like, this is
Nope,
a
they're-
committee. Like, I want opinions.
Oak and edible peach would be nice, yes.
Okay.
And then any of the others that are on Lauren's list that he wants to present.
I'll I'll go with the Yellowwood, the Ironwood, the Ohio Buckeye, and the Contender Peach if you guys want.
I'm on board with that.
Sounds good.
That's like 3/4 of my list, so that makes me happy.
Okay,
All right, well, can I get a motion to approve the list as presented by Lauren? The Yellowwood, the Ironwood, the Ohio Buckeye, and the Contender Peach.
I move that we accept that list as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, well, we have our list. It's very exciting. That's my favorite part of this meeting. Apologies to all of the trees that we did not select.
And Chairman, I also have a meeting that I need.
Well, I think
Are we close?
we are really close to done here. I know if you got to bail, you got to bail. But
We
we'll
lose a quorum
We'll lose
if
our
we lose
quorum if
one
you
more,
leave. So if you
so-
could give us 5 minutes, we can wrap this up.
You might as well just adjourn or something, yeah.
Oh, we lose quorum, which means we can't vote, but
Yeah.
we can still proceed with informational.
Okay,
Okay.
that's fine then.
But you can adjourn without my,
No, we're gonna be stuck here till you come back. All right, a meeting that never ends.
Hence the reason I wanted to modify the agenda and put
Yeah.
it earlier in the agenda. I
Thank
didn't
you.
realize they were going to leave.
Thank you, Dallas. I appreciate that. Thank you, Mike. All right, well, no more voting, but does anybody have any updates? Because that's what we're up to now.
There was a question that was brought up earlier, and I wanted to bring it up for public consumption about oak trees, because I know my neighbors had an oak tree that died at the top of the tree, and they basically had to cut it down, so I've got an obelisk across the street and a stump in the next one. There was something you suggested for maintenance of oak trees?
So, yeah, oaks have a problem with chlorosis, yellowing leaves. It's a lack of iron in our soils around here. So if you have an oak tree that the leaves look yellow on, it's probably chlorotic. You can buy iron supplements at nurseries, and I think it comes in both pellets and liquid form. You can spread it around your tree to help that. It is stressful. Iron deficiency is stressful for the oak tree, so it'll be a lot healthier if you give it a little iron.
Yeah, Mike had suggested ironite. Is that one chemical?
I'm not familiar with the brand names.
There are also available direct trunk injections of iron that bypass the soil completely. A lot of times, it's not necessarily just that there's not enough iron in the soil, it's that the soil pH is binding the available iron, right?
Right.
And so just putting the iron down in the soil might not make it available because the soil pH may just bind it again. So if that's the problem, you mitigate the soil and try to lower the pH, which you can do with like a sulfur application. Around here, it's typically clay soil, so the soil pH is usually high. But if you can use something to bring down the level of the soil pH down to something more neutral or slightly acidic, in the meantime, you can do a direct trunk injection with iron chelate that just goes right up into the tree and provides several years of green leaves, which de-stresses the tree. And then the other thing that the stress invites into the tree is opportunistic secondary pests like two-line chestnut borer, which is a super close relative of emerald ash borer. They're both a grylus species. And then that causes tip-back, dieback, and kills the tree much the same way emerald ash borer does to our ash trees. So there's lots of things going on with oaks right now, and a lot of it stems from the fact that there's just not enough environmental moisture.
Right.
All good
exactly.
suggestions for people to recognize their oak trees are having problems. That's the main thing.
Water your trees. That's just I'm gonna just get on my soapbox for a minute. Just water your trees.
Yeah, deep soaking water. Trees are very stressed over the last 3 drought summers. And two-line chestnut borer attacks stressed oak trees. You see a thinning canopy where all the leaves are right next to the great big stem. That's at the top of the tree. That's probably two-line chestnut borer attacking it, and because it's so stressed.
Answers my question.
What do you recommend for watering practices, Lauren? Like, how much water are you telling people to put down when they ask?
Good question. I tell them to buy a soaker hose and wrap it around the tree and 6 feet away from the trunk and let it soak like that for 3 hours, and then move it out to a 12-foot ring and soak it again for 3 hours, and then move it out to a 18-foot ring and soak it again for 3 hours. I don't,
If you had to give someone a volume of water, what would you say?
on a large oak tree,
It does depend on the size of the tree, that's true.
I don't have a good answer, but I'm gonna say a minimum of 200 gallons.
That's a solid answer. It's gonna scare people, but it's a solid answer.
What time frame?
Drip irrigation is the best.
Well, but like over, like, so are we talking 200 gallons a week, 2 weeks, a month?
I would say on top of regular lawn watering, 200 gallons a month
Okay.
in droughty conditions.
A lot of water.
Yes, it is.
You need it though. A big mature oak tree can move up to 500 gallons a day through its water conductive system. It does not need that much. Some of them have that capacity. They need more water.
So that's average of 6 gallons per minute. That's like 33 minutes.
It's pretty impressive.
watering. Is that about the right?
Yeah, I guess I usually tell people like per diameter inch, about 10 gallons. So like whatever your tree is at 4.5 feet, that diameter across, like 10-ish gallons every 2 weeks per diameter inch. So like a 20-inch tree, yeah, 200 gallons. Somewhere around there. Thank you, Lauren.
Yep, you're welcome.
So then, so board member updates. Dallas, you had a question. Glenn, anything from you?
Oh.
I also don't have anything. I am in October going to the Landscape Below Ground Conference at the Morton Arboretum. I'm very excited. It's gonna be, we talk about tree roots. Good time. Council liaison updates are up next. I think there's Zabel. What you got for us? I'm back. Welcome back.
Well,
We're happy to have you.
Always good to be here. Give me 1 second. Just a few tonight. So at our last city council meeting, we took our first official action on the 2024 budget, which is adopting our preliminary levy. So this is required by state law. It essentially sets the maximum for our levy going forward or in the year ahead. Between now and December, when we adopt the budget, we'll be working with staff to kind of trim away at that and really polish up the budget and get it as low as possible. But it's been a lot of work. You know, the city council, we've been working on it since May, I believe, but our staff has been working on it even before then, pretty much every single day. So, you know, a big thank you to our staff for getting it where it is now. Yes, big round of applause for them. Some highlights of the budget includes 5 new personnel, 3 new police officers, an additional parks worker, and some administrative help. Our city is growing. It is time that we staff up to reflect the needs of our community. And, you know, having just completed the transition to a full-time career fire department, it's time to start looking at the other side of public safety, as well as some of our other departments. So that is a big focus. Also, you know, Oakdale has, for the last few years, had a focus on cutting our debt service as a city and relying more on cash. This has been especially helpful as we see interest rates climbing. You know, anytime we take out a bond and pay on it for 10 years, there's a significant cost to that. So, you know, as those rates continue to climb, we are using more cash for things like vehicles and equipment. This will be our 3rd or 4th year in a row that our debt service is declining, which is a really it's a testament to our finance department taking action on our priorities as a council, so that's good. Another big topic for the city council recently has been cannabis. You know, that has been a big topic for most cities across the state as, you know, the state legalized recreational use starting, I believe, August 1st. As a city, you know, there's a few roles for us. A lot of the regulation and licensure is going to be handled by the state. When that eventually rolls out, there are a few roles that the city can play. 4 actions we took at our last meeting was pertaining to use of cannabis in city parks. It is prohibited. Regulating use of cannabis via smoking and vaping in private spaces that are subject to public accommodation laws. So sidewalks in front of businesses, et cetera, restricting that. We've also adopted a temporary moratorium on the establishment of new cannabis businesses. This was really in response to the state taking over, the regulatory structure. The state hasn't rolled out those rules yet, and until they do, we just want to put a pause on it. As soon as they roll out the rules, we will look at the zoning implications for the city of Oakdale, and then we'll respond accordingly. But for the time being, we're just hitting pause on that, and also allowing the sale of THC in liquor stores, so seltzers, et cetera. This was something that was previously prohibited under state law. The state changed their law, so now we have to go and change our ordinance, or we don't have to, we're choosing to give liquor stores that opportunity. We've also had a lot of events lately, Touch a Truck, let me look at my notes here. Touch a Truck, Family Fun Inflatables, Farmers Market, those continue every single week. So I want to offer a big thank you to our recreation staff. They've done an amazing job, with all of the summer programming, all of the events going on. I've heard nothing but good things from residents, so it's nice to see those events are still being well attended and appreciated by our residents. Finally, earlier this month, the city published the State of the City address. It was my first day of the city as mayor. I had the honor of presenting it at the Chamber of Commerce meeting earlier this month, and we also put together a very nice video for our residents, just walking through everything that's happening in our community. Like I said, we're growing, we're booming. We have a lot going on in business and residential development. I walked through some of the changes in public safety, parks, communications, recreation, and more. So if you haven't seen it, you can find it on the city's YouTube channel and Facebook page. Give it a watch. It's just under 10 minutes, so not too long, but just a lot of really good information about what's happening here in Oakdale. There's a lot going on, so we want to showcase that for our residents, say some very important thank yous to the people that make it happen every single day, and we feel like that video accomplishes that. So. It's busy. It's busy at the city council, so I am happy to answer any questions you may have.
Is there anything?
The only question I've got is a personal one. Do you know how long the farmer's market's going to go on?
I believe we have 4 left, counting tomorrow's.
4 weeks.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, so mid-October, and then we'll take the pause, and then the indoor market will start up in the Discovery Center during the winter. So, yeah, it's unfortunate when the farmer's market ends, because we know what comes next.
That which we do not speak of, yes.
That-
Best season of the year, you guys, is that time of year. So
No.
no allergens in the winter, you guys.
That's fair. This has been a rough week for my allergies, so.
So I do have a question.
Yes.
If someone is looking for information about the events that the city puts on, where would we find them?
Oh, there are so many different ways to find out. Our website is by far our best resource, oakdalemn.gov. Everything you need is there. There's a very helpful calendar. If you scroll down on the homepage, that's always a good resource. Oakdalefun.com is the recreations website, specific website. There's a ton of good information there as well. You can also check out the city's Facebook page. We have all of those events built there. Even Oakdale Recreation has their own Facebook page. They're there as well. So we cover all the bases, or just reach out to any of your city council members. We'll tell you what's going on.
Excellent. Thank you.
You bet. Anything else?
That's everything for me.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much. Deb, you got any updates for us? Okay,
If I may,
please.
do you have a sign-up sheet for the Buckthorn event yet?
Final draft's going out today.
Okay, thank you.
Will everything be provided by the city, or do I need them to bring?
They've got gloves they like, they should,
That's what I saw.
Yeah, that's typically the thing. I have gloves, but if they have gloves they want to fit properly, they should bring their own.
pretty particular with my gloves.
Yep. And any eye protection they want to fit properly. I have safety glasses too, but
If they want their own PPE, they should bring it.
At that point, do you have anything further? Move for adjournment if you were done.
just that October 14th is, we decided that our last meeting was the best date for the buckthorn removal event, so that's on the flyer. I have made contact with the National Honor Societies. I think I've only heard back from Tartan, if I remember correctly. But, so anyways,
At that point,
Tartan's
move
on
for
board.
adjournment then.
You second that? Can I second that? Seconded. Yeah. All in favor of adjourning the tree board meeting for today?
Aye.
Aye.
We don't, we can't
We
take a
can't
vote.
vote. No
so
voting.
We're down to adjourn.
All right, well, we're adjourned. As I hit my gavel.
long one tonight.
It was a long one, sorry. I started talking and I wouldn't stop.
So you had brought up one of the trees needs a little warmer temperature than we have currently.
Well, it doesn't need it.
Thank
but
you.
As we
You'll
start
be hearing from me
considering
soon.
the impacts of climate change, it shifts.
Just recognize that
My boss and I can
scientific